think they like you.
I like them.
Well, thank you so much for coming along here today, Honor. Thank you. I'd like to start, if I could, by asking, what was it that first made you decide to become an actress? How did a young lady working in the East End of London, how did that actually happen?
Yes, well, I wasn't a young lady working in the East End. I was born in Plaistow, but very shortly afterwards we moved to Chiswick.
Ah.
Yes, if you look in Grantham Road, number 11, it's opposite the park gates that... You know where the main road goes like that and all the traffic goes, I don't know what number it is. And we lived opposite the park gates and in a flat without a bathroom. And I remember being stood in the sink to be washed, and I rather liked it. We moved from there when I was 6. But how did I come to be an actress? Oh, heavens. It wasn't until my 16th birthday, I think it was, my father, he was near enough, God knows what a Cockney is. Well, I know what it's supposed to be, but he was one of those. And he had done very well and got into the civil service because he was a very bright cookie. And he realised... we're going back to the Dark Ages. He realised that you were liable to do better in life if you could speak properly. And since I was rather gall-blimey...
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Really?
No, I know. I find it difficult to imagine. Anyway, so on my 16th birthday, he said, did I want elocution lessons or did I want a bicycle? Well, I passionately wanted a bicycle. But I knew what my father wanted, and actually I did. I did want elocution lessons, and I was lucky enough to get a female teacher who was quite wonderful, and instead of making me read the telephone directory or something, and how now, brown cow, and all that, she gave me scenes from plays and poetry to recite. And I was fascinated, and she seemed to think I was very good. And when we came to London, I went to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, but I couldn't go full-time because we didn't have the money, so I used to go 2 lunch times. I was working by then in the civil service. I went to work the day before my 16th birthday, actually. And so 2 lunch times I went to classes and 1 private lesson a week. But I still got my diploma and everything the same time as everybody else. So, and I didn't think of becoming an actress. It never occurred to me. First of all, honestly, I thought actors did it for fun. I didn't know. I'd never been to the theatre, never been to a pantomime, I don't know plays before I was on the boards myself. It was weird, really.
I'm sure that all actors nowadays only do it for fun. They don't do it for money or anything nowadays, I'm sure.
I wish that were true. Anyway, so that's how it happened. What happened?
Was your first role in something called The Guinea Pig? I think it was.
I went for an audition. My father saw this advertisement for an audition for the Company of 4, for the Lyric Hammersmith, actually. And in the audience, well, I say in the audience, there were about 6 people, that's all in the theatre, because they were auditions. And there was a director called Jack Minster, who was just about to direct The Guinea Pig, which came into the Criterion. And he said he'll always remember my audition, because I swept onto the stage with great aplomb and said, imagine the gunfire there, imagine this there, imagine that there. And then it was, you will scream with laughter at this, we were taught in drama school to do a duologue. So you play this person, then you play that person, then you play that person back again. I mean, it must have been hysterical. And certainly when I chose this scene from Winterset, and I had to die as one person, and then, over the other side. So it was hysteria, really. I can realise why he'll always remember my audition. And you were supposed to do 3 minutes. And at 7.5 minutes, they said, "Thank you very much." And I went out, and I just thought it was an experience. When my father saw this advertisement, it surely wasn't in the Times, which is what he read. And then I was going down the road, and I heard my name being called, and it was the casting director called Daphne Rye. And she said that Chadminster would like me to understudy in The Leading Lady in the Guinea Pig.
Wow.
Which was just going on prior to London tour, and then it opened at the Criterion at £7 a week. I'd never earned more than £2.25 or something, and so it was thrilling. So that's how it started.
And you really got a flavour and taste for treading the boards from that? Was that
oh, yeah.
Did you suddenly realise this is what you wanted?
I mean, I loved it, even when I wasn't thinking about being an actress. And the thing was, when my father saw this advertisement, he said, "Why don't you go for that?" And I hadn't thought it was a preparation to be an actress, because, as I say, I thought they did it for fun. Make a lot of actors laugh, that's really. And so I said, I couldn't. And he said, "Well, what the hell have you been doing all this work for?" So, if my father suggests something, you do it.
Wise words.
And so he was very thrilled. And I remember, because I did the audition at the Duchess Theatre, and that's where Daphne ran after me. And I got this job, and my father was working at the Old Bailey, in case you should think otherwise. And I ran all the way from the Duchess Theatre in the Strand to the Old Bailey, and arrived, and he was so thrilled, I must say. It was really a very touching moment.
Oh. How did you then move on from the stage to working in films? Because I think one of your first film roles is in Fame is the Spur, isn't it? It's a bit an uncredited role, though, I think. Or a sort of an unspeaking part.
An unspeaking part.
Yeah.
A very memorable part, as far as...
Of course, yeah.
Well, no, as far as I'm concerned, because I nearly died in my first film. Because I got the part because it still happens. Directors go to see auditions, other people's auditions. If they're auditioning for the next musical or whatever, the director will drop in and see if there's anyone, I was going to say he fancies, but scrub that. And I'd been seen in an understudy rehearsal, and I got the film with John and Roy Bolting. And it was about the Peterloo marches, when they all marched up north because they hadn't got any jobs and all the rest of it. And my boyfriend in the film was one of the leaders of these marches, and they sent the dragoons in to break all the people up. And I was run through with a sabre. And so, the guy's sitting on a horse and I'm standing in there, and that wasn't the difficult bit, plunging with the sword. But what goes up must come down, and the horse reared, like that, and came down and hit the camera, hit the cameraman, and it was disaster. So we had to scrub it for that day. So we got another horse and another rider and everything, and we did it the next Monday. And the horse went up, and I was wearing this long wig, and the horse came down, I should think, an inch from my ear, on my hair. So it could have gone straight through my head. And so, it being my first film, was cut! I heard that. But, you know, it was my first film, so I wasn't sure of anything, so I thought, it's supposed to be dead. So I lay there being dead, and the silence was terrible.
Did they think that you'd been trampled?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
And then I heard these footsteps coming. Honor, Honor! And I thought, well, if they're calling me by my name, it must be on all right. So I opened my eyes. They were grey, I have to say, grey. And I was stupid enough not to have been... I mean, it wasn't a nice experience, but I thought, oh, well, that's done, you know. And anyway, so I nearly went in the very first film.
So you had a remarkably successful career then for 10 years or so in films and on stage.
Aren't you polite?
But it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, one of my favourites out of that time is A Night to Remember, which is, of course, the story of the Titanic.
Yes.
Did you, and the rest of the cast that were involved in it, did you feel any sense of responsibility to make sure that what you were doing was accurate?
Yes.
Rather than perhaps a little bit more exaggerated and glammed up like the...
Oh, don't.
Yes, exactly.
That was technically brilliant, but it was quite awful where the people were concerned.
I know.
mean, it was so...
tasteless.
And so un-British. Well, of course it was un-British. And the one thing about the Titanic, I mean, I don't know, I suppose there are people who just stand on the ship and go down with it and let their women and children go nowadays, I suppose. But it was very, very stiff upper lip, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the other film was dreadful.
I'd heard from reports that some of the survivors of the Titanic thought that it was a very accurate representation of what did take place. Your film, yes.
Oh, yes.
Is that something you're quite proud of, that you were doing something that...
Well, honestly, I was so young and pretty inexperienced that I thought it was tragic and dreadful, and I was part of it, and I had to leave my husband behind. But I wasn't terribly aware of feeling responsible about anything. I mean, Roy Baker, who's just died, was the best director ever. I mean, a great, great director. Not all smiley. I suppose I liked him because he was a bit like my father. But he was very, very good.
So, moving forward a little bit now to 1961.
That's a jump, yes.
A little bit. There's this television series called The Avengers that's been running for a year.
Yes.
Had you seen it? Were you aware of this series? And how did you first find out about a role called Kathy Gale?
I don't think I'd ever seen it. Because I think just before that I was busy playing a murderess in something. My mother never liked it, you know. Why don't you play a nice part? I mean, she didn't understand that the bitches and the murderesses and stuff are more entertaining as far as the actors concerned than the straight ones. Where were we? What was that supposed to be saying?
How did you first hear about the part? Was it your agent got in touch, or?
I mean, I knew I'd seen Ian. You know, I don't know what else, but he was such a terrific actor. Such a terrific actor. I mean, it's just sad the way he threw his life away. I was rung up by my agent and said, would I go and see this producer? And actually, I was going through a frightful sort of time because I shouldn't talk about it. I'd lost my brother, then I lost my father, and I kept having great crying jags, and I was having a crying jag, and I had to go to this meeting, and I just got married, and I said, I really can't go. And I said, oh, yes, you can, and got out the ice and all the rest of it. So I must have looked lovely. And I went and I saw Leonard White, and we chatted, and he said, you know, if you did this, you'd have to do judo. Do you know anything about it? I said, no, nothing. You'd have to teach me. And when we got along well, and I went home and that was it, and then I was offered the part. I understand since that Sidney Newman wanted somebody quite different.
Oh.
The man has no taste. And so anyway, I got it, and I met Patrick, and he was lovely. Patrick's such a gentleman. And we had great fun for 2 years. It was, I think, the hardest work I've ever done in this business. Because, you know, we had 2 weeks to rehearse. So we had a different script every week. I used to go... Well, first of all, of course, I didn't do the fighting because they hadn't started that yet. And there was, I think, about the third episode, and it said in the script, Kathy reaches into her bag for a gun. And all the women in the audience, and probably all the men, know that if you reach into your bag for a gun, 10 minutes later you'll be dead as a go. So I said, you know, couldn't I do one of this judo business? And somebody in the cast actually did judo. And he showed me a very simple throw, which I did with such passion because I wanted to get it right. And being female, you know, you knew that everybody was going to knock you. And and I did it very well. And so they got so excited then. And I was sent off to have lessons. And it was in Panton Street, and Joe and Doug Robinson were my instructors. And they said it's down in the basement, and I arrived at these premises, and I started to go down the steps, and the smell. Everybody's sweating down there, you know.
I don't suppose they must have seen a female
in
there ever.
They haven't. And I got down there, and all the mats damp because everybody sweats. And a breaking fall, banging like mad, you know. And I fondly thought, quite rightly, I think, that I might have a private lesson. Not a bit of it. I was in there with the chaps. And there I was, and I had to put on the gear and everything, and they'd never had a woman before, so there wasn't anywhere for me to change. And there was a scraggy little piece of curtain in one corner, and they said, well, you go behind there and change. I went behind there, and there was a line of pegs with grotty jock straps. I thought, well, this is going to be fun. So anyway, that's how it all started.
The glamour of show business.
Yes.